Hey thinkers, welcome to this week's thinking podcast by Human, formerly known as NutriBox. So if you missed the big news, we recently changed our company from NutriBox to Human. But before we get into that, let me introduce ourselves properly once again. So this is your host, Jeffrey Wu, co-founder, CEO of Human, and my co-host,
Michael Brandt. Hi, how's it going?
My co-founder as well for Human. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. I mean, I think obviously renaming to Human HVMN is a big decision, big move. I think we had a lot of questions on NutriBox is a cool name. Like, it's all about nootropics. Like, why did you guys change the name? And it's really been a testament to our journey starting 3 years ago from NutriBox,
box of nootropics that comes every month,
to now us having a podcast, us having tens of thousands of people in our community, us building more and more products and doing more and more R&D, which we'll hopefully tease into a little bit in this episode. And we really saw the scope of our business turn from just focus on cognitive enhancement, nootropics, into really seeing the opportunity to really build the first and foremost human enhancement company. Nootropics in of itself became overly constraining. So let's really plant the flag for biohacking, for human enhancement, and name our company in a way that represents all of it.
Yeah.
So therefore, HVMN.
And we're continuing on with NutriBox. NutriBox still continues as a product line and Go Cubes, and it lets us expand out.
Yep.
I think that's the exciting thing. It's not really a departure from anything we've done in the past. It's
just
escalation, like a new role, new responsibilities.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, let's rewind. Like, I think it's almost about 3 years now since we started the company. It's been a crazy journey where it was you and me, like, basically working out of the apartment and like the office that I was working out of. For like in those early days, I think let's just rehash some of those founding stories where I remember we were looking to nootropics and it was interesting, right? Like the notion that, hey, we can be smarter, we can be more productive, and do it in a way that has very safe and low side effect profiles was interesting, right? Like I think it's especially in this day and age where like our mental productivity is such a key part of daily life.
And it's that athletes train and there's a ton of science behind it, and you know that there's different things you put in your body already that affect your cognitive state. So why can't there be a way of treating your brain really well, optimally?
Yeah, I mean, I remember this reminds me of some of the talking points, right? Like alcohol affects your mental state in some way, right? Like it's very obvious how that affects you.
Yeah.
Marijuana affects the mental state in a very clear way. Plenty of
coffee,
substances, coffee in like a more productive perhaps way, right?
Yeah.
And just like, well, let's re-engineer and be thoughtful about inputting these inputs into the body, into the human brain to make it more optimal, make it more productive, right? Like obviously alcohol pushes the cognition in certain directions, usually not for, faster reaction time. So if there's things that push it down, are there things in the universe that can push it in the positive direction? And that, I think, was the core insight into really diving into the space of nootropics. But like when we entered the space of nootropics, it was a pretty Wild West space.
Yeah. And it's always interesting to see it unfold because we began making the products that we wanted as consumers.
Right.
And that's actually a pattern. I feel like there's two schools of design. One school of design is like you're supposed to like remove yourself and like design stuff for other people. Another school of design, some of the most popular products ever are like Steve Jobs made the phone that he wanted. I fully believe.
Right.
I think that like Snapchat, it just designed the disappearing photo message app that they wanted. And very much for us, we started making what we wanted to see in the world. And then because we wanted to perform better for whatever company or next endeavor, we wanted to be the most performant versions of ourselves. And then business intuition kicked in of like, hey, this is a trend. This is scaling up. Let's continue to make this more broadly available. Let's talk to any and all press that want to speak with us.
I think that's really interesting. I think we've really seen the growth of biohacking as a buzzword. I mean, in 2014, biohacking was definitely not as well known. I mean, it was just like it was just like us tinkering with like random powders online that we'd order and like weigh out in drug scales. And I think, like, luckily, I think we've been really part of that movement to take biohacking from just like a hobbyist activity that people would do in their kitchens to like now there's like terms like that's like a pretty well understood term that's being used in popular mainstream press, right? I think we've played a small part in that, but obviously everyone in our community who's been with us from day one, and other interesting thought leaders and companies building the actual tech products and technology that's making it happen. I mean, I think
Why do you think
cool.
it's going on right now? Like, why now? Like, I'm sure 20 years ago people thought it'd be really cool to hack the human system. And why now?
Yeah. So I have a good theory on that. So you're right. So the human drive to improve ourselves has been with us since like we
what makes
evolved
us human.
as just like animals rising up from the primordial goop, right? Like you have Cortez like hunting for the fountain of youth. I mean, Chinese emperors looking to eat mercury to live forever, right? So it's in like, Egyptian pharaohs looking to live forever by mummifying themselves. So it's like a very human innate desire to enhance, live forever, be better versions of themselves. I think what's interesting about this specific time is that there's a strong intuition of like, can we feel better? Can we optimize better? And the notion of enhancement has always been fuzzy in that way. But what is interesting in this specific time era is that we have all these biometric sensors, like the Apple Watch, with glucose monitors, with ketone monitors, with reaction time tests, like Lumosity, all these brain, training games that are some measure of cognition. And that is ubiquitous, super cheap, widely available. So now we can actually finally measure these things. And when you can measure things, you can finally apply engineering principles to. Right. So I think what's happening now is that before it's like this holistic, intuitive
chakras, like aligning.
Yeah.
Your
Like kind of like hippie
yeah.
stuff. Right. Which is like much more easily dismissed as snake oil, BS. Like we don't health and wellness.
To, like, reproduce in a scientific context.
Right.
And yeah.
So, but like I think what's gravitated us towards this space and what is giving us a lot of leadership in this space is by really advocating and providing people with resources and the know-how to actually be measuring these things quantitatively. So now it's like, hey, my blood glucose is dropping when I'm fasting. That's interesting. Like that is a good sign of not being, progressing towards diabetes or other metabolic syndromes. Like my reaction time is improving, therefore my nootropics are doing something for me. Or like my working memory is expanding, like my nootropics are doing something for me, right? Or like my, so like all these things can finally be quantified. If you can quantify it, you can measure it, you can feel definitive proof on why these things are affecting your platform, your body.
Yeah, and it's coming true is an ecosystem. You mentioned a number of tools out there. I think it's exciting to be part of that, where you see a lot of companies that are building different tools and sensors and interventions to help people to biohack. And it's interesting because I think one of the deep seated cause of it is like there's a lot of frustration around healthcare in general.
Right.
I don't think anyone likes healthcare. I know a lot of doctors, they don't like healthcare. Patients don't like healthcare. Politicians don't like healthcare. No one likes healthcare.
A sixth of our economy is healthcare.
Yeah.
Which is massive.
And then you have apps and other types of devices and interventions that are cheaper than a cost of a copay that are allowing people to improve their outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's another big thing driving the human mission, the HVMN mission, where we see that the internet has really decentralized computing as a platform, right? Where it used to be that we would have to go into an IBM mainframe to type in, like, use a computer. Now everyone through the cloud, through their mobile devices, can access like Amazon cloud services or access, through the cloud, some supercomputer cluster. So that's a decentralization of computing. You see cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, where they're really decentralizing financial institutions, where now it's not just like, the big banks or central banks controlling currency. Like it's just like distributed amongst everyone that has like a Bitcoin node. And I'd like human to represent the decentralization of healthcare, where right now healthcare is like run by big insurance companies and like big hospital systems. And I think all the players, as you mentioned, are not happy with it. You talk to doctors one-on-one. They wish they had like smarter and better conversation with their patients that are not clocked in at like 15-minute, like quick churn, slash and burn missions. Patients aren't happy because they get like, they talk to the doctor once a year. They feel like it's very impersonal. They don't even know what's going on until like, hey, you're dying. Like, dude, take all these medicines. So we see human really as the decentralization of healthcare, meaning that we want to empower each individual person. So all of us should be more proactive in managing our own health. And we want to give you the tools, whether through our nootropics, our communities, or our software to help you, live day to day better. Right. So I think it's like, if you can measure yourself against, like biometric norms on a day-to-day basis, you can be much more proactive in correcting them than like coming in once a year to a doctor and seeing that like, hey, your blood measures are totally whacked. Like, change up your lifestyle like super immediately, right? That's much harder to change than if you just constantly check on yourself every single day.
Yeah, and I think one of the ideas that I like a lot in the space is, you think about like when you're driving a car, like opening your eyes once every 5 minutes versus just having them open the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like that infrequent check-in with your doctor where, I think a lot of doctors, all doctors, they swear by the Hippocratic Oath. They want to truly help you. Like, I've never met like a mean-hearted doctor. Like, they genuinely want to help you, and they'll give you sound advice when you come in for that yearly checkup. But I think that there is something missing there where there's not a constant state. And I think that there's a difference between understanding something in the abstract, like your doctor telling you to eat more healthy,
right,
versus seeing it in yourself. And like, we know that, for instance, like soda is not good for you,
right.
But then when you wear a glucose monitor and you see what your normal baseline is, what it is when you're fasting, what it is when you're exercising, and what it is when you're eating something that's not healthy. Right. I think something really clicked for me personally, and I want that to click for everyone out there. Like, and there's when you're actually measuring your outcomes in that, and you're seeing it literally on yourself as patient zero,
right,
and it's matching up to what's been studied broadly across. You want like the large size N for the studies as well. There's something about seeing it yourself, I think, that's just like unbeatable. Like, when you actually see your reaction times improving from nootropics, like there's something. Even as a
proof in the pudding,
human,
right?
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, this, yeah, exactly. And I think that's what we want to take into health, where I think medicine or just healthcare in general has always been like, you defer to authority and you don't take responsibility until it's too late, until you're like, you're in the cancer ward. So I think like, hopefully a big part of our mission moving forward is empowering every single one of us to take a little bit of more responsibility of our own health on a day-to-day basis, right? Wear these sensors, take different supplements and nootropics that can optimize your daily health routines, and then like be a part of a community that can hold you to that standard, right? And I think one of the most important things I think we're working on is really like redefining culture, where in some ways it's like okay to be overweight or out of shape. Like, obviously, like, there doesn't need to be like quote unquote fat shaming, but like, it's just not a healthy state to be in. Like, it's no two ways around it, right? Like, let's not BS ourselves here, right? And I think it's like, there's some notion around like the norm human or the norm American is overweight, pre-diabetic, like cancer rates are up, right? Like, is that actually the norm that we're happy with? Like, if you look at the CDC predictions, right, 75% of Americans will be overweight and obese by 2050. Is that like the norm that we're happy with? So I think a big part of a personal mission is like, no, we should not be happy with that. Let's actually build a culture around healthy living and not being satisfied with like, let's all be like big bloated people that are going to die prematurely.
And I would say that you probably don't feel as good along the way. I mean, you don't. I think that there's definitely a connection between lifestyle for longevity, but also a lifestyle that you enjoy more along the way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just giving people access to the tools and the information and the community and support
Right.
so that they can make better decisions.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why, like, I think that there's a lot of success with our WeFast community, right? Like, there's people that are super optimal, productive with like sub 10 body fat percentage, and there's people that are diabetic and like 250 pounds, and there's no judgment. I mean, just like we all start at different starting points, but we're all trying to be better, right? I think that's the takeaway. It's not like let's judge people. It's all just about, hey, we're all on this spectrum of human performance, human health. Let's just be better and better versions of ourselves, and let's help provide everyone with the tools, the community, and the support to do it, right? Because I think the support structure in America today is like no one cares. Like no one's like supporting you of like eating healthy or fasting, or like if you're fasting, people think you're actually weird, right? It's like a very unnormal thing to do. Let's like make fasting less weird. Let's make fasting like a part of like a healthy
as exercise.
Yeah, I think that's like one big thing that we look at. I think, you know, I'm inspired by Nike, where Nike really turned a whole generation of us into athletes, right? Like their big motto is everyone is an athlete. And I don't know anyone that doesn't like know that exercise is like
good for you,
is like a reasonable thing to do. I like a lot of people wish they could their New Year's resolution is to exercise, which is like a good goal for us to think about other areas of biohacking, right? I think exercise really is just like one aspect of biohacking, which is like physical routines to optimize for something.
Yeah, that are unnecessary, right? You don't have to do it. Like you don't.
Yeah, we're no longer hunter gatherers. We're not farmers anymore. We're just we're intellectual labor, right? Most of us are at our desk. You're probably on your way to commute onto your desk job. That is what it is. That's just what our society is.
And I think if you're an alien from outer space, looking at humans, you'd be like, that's very interesting that they go to the gym and clank around iron, or they go for a run that they didn't need to go on.
Right.
And you look at it and say, oh, that's an interesting intervention. Like that helps people live longer, happier, healthier lives.
Right.
Then what else? Like what else is there? I think there should be a whole stack, and I think people should be able to manage all the different tools and routines that they're doing to become to live the best life.
Exactly. So I hope Human can really be that community hub where we help promote, educate, and give the best tools and provide like the right support structure around all these science validated, evidence validated interventions, whether that's nootropics, whether that's ketogenic diets, whether that's fasting, all of these things.
Yeah. For any last words, I mean, I was thinking anything to point people to.
Yeah.
In general, I mean, I think now is a great time to follow
Human.
us.
Yeah.
Follow at HVMN on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think that we brought some interesting new people onto the team. We can shed some light on that.
Yeah.
And our content and the wealth of resources we're going to be sharing out. We've always made it a priority, but it's escalating now tremendously.
Yeah. I like one thing that you say a lot, and what like Jeff Bezos says about Amazon, right? This is like day one, like this, but I think it's like a very much like a formalized day one, where like NutriBox took us to a point where we're running a multi-million-dollar business. Yeah. We have an awesome team, awesome community around us, and now it's just like really just unfolding to our broader mission. Like, let's be the human enhancement company. And what does that mean? That means like the community and a whole swath of R&D for like the best products in the space. And a lot of that is supported by a couple new hires that we're really excited to introduce. One you might have actually heard about already, Dr. Brianna Stubbs. She was on a podcast with me probably a few months ago. And even during that time, we've been talking about, formally collaborating. And she is now our research lead full-time in San Francisco at our headquarters. So a little bit on her backstory, and we'll probably link to it so you can see her previous podcast, and we'll probably have her back on to talk about her work here, is that she is a PhD in metabolic biochemistry from Oxford University, studying all about ketone metabolism and exogenous ketones. And on the side, if you can count this on the side, is that she was a world-class rower. So she was on the Great Britain national rowing team and won a gold medal at the 2016 World Championships in the 4-person women's lightweight crew. So a world-class athlete plus a world-class expert in ketone metabolism plus Just an all around bright, uh, awesome person. So really excited to have her come on board and really take our research and our initiatives there to the next level. And we also want to welcome Justin Liao, who is our customer success.
Very much the voice on their website when you go and ask any questions about any products. And he's got an interesting backstory. He's been doing a ketogenic diet for a while. He worked at Google previously, helping with customer success there. And it lets us light up the board as far as like anytime you have a question within like any sort of reasonable hours,
right,
we're able to answer. And we all say it in the room together.
Yeah, so let's chat, email, and also phone now. So you can actually call in and you'll probably talk to Justin. Call in and say hi. What is the number? We'll probably have the number posted if you want to just call in and
it's on our website as well.
And kick his tires. Make sure he's sharp. I think we're definitely teching up and staffing up. So if you can put one and one together, we're clearly working on some big products, especially with the new rebrand coming hopefully by end of year. So stay tuned for that. And we'll probably keep dropping hints and teasers through the next, our weekly rhythm of podcasts. So thanks, Zil, for, again, our executive producer here. If you have any interesting aspects of biohacking or different academics or just folks that you've always wanted to learn from or listen from, email that in so we can get them on this show. In general, I think this is day one for a human. This is day one for us. Let's bring biohacking and human enhancement to the world.
Yeah, it's exciting times.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
So before we go, I'm going to just close off by saying that, hey, you can always find us and subscribe on YouTube, Google Play, iTunes, and also SoundCloud. Follow us on our channels at HVMN. So 4-letter domain. We're super canonical, HVMN. We want that to be as canonical as Nike and Apple. So help us get there. Thanks so much.
And leave a review on our iTunes.
And leave a review on our iTunes. Thanks, Zil.